So, I've got a sort of interesting topic. I've been thinking about this. So, I've been following the Green Party, and as people know, I pretty much align with them on everything. And I know a lot of people might click away from this now, but hear me out. There's a reason why I'm getting into politics now, and that's because of specific problems around the UK. And I'm talking about anti-immigration, racism, and just the entire premise of quote unquote protecting women and children, which it doesn't actually mean, it just means oppressing women and children to the people using it. And I want to prevent any of this shit from happening. And there's a very good reason why. These things are beneficial to not just the economy but society, and not saying everyone's things, but basically all these people are beneficial. And they have a place in the economy, and based on the research I've done, which is very like surface level research, it's not even that in depth, there's been like strong cases for keeping immigrants in the country, people of colour, and even obviously women and children, but in a free world obviously for their case. So no oppression, and that comes with a lot of benefits, because essentially immigrants and stuff are doing jobs we don't want to do. People of colour might be multicultural, but also they just provide a perspective. I guess well, it's hard to say really how much a person's skin colour can impact other people, but it is a diversity, I suppose, and that's always a good thing. And there's obviously women and children, obviously they have their part, be it like working jobs or obviously children learning and being the beacon of the future. That's pretty much what's happening. But the one thing I've realised that was really important, and if anyone actually wants to address something like racism and anti-immigration or like anything like this, you have to listen to what the young people say. Because if you're in your 40s or older, here's the thing you've got to understand. You've already been through life, and young people like myself, I'm 28, we're essentially just getting started, and in this current situation, we cannot do that because there is a wealth inequality, so we need to tax wealth for starters. But we also can't do it without obviously something like people of colour, immigrants, or women and children. You know, without these essential pillars of society and even economics and other cases there, we don't really have any legs to stand on, and our futures are compromised. And this is why I say there's a selfish thing to vote against what the young people want, because it literally is a selfish thing to do. You know, if it's your own personal preference, you're essentially trying to live out something you've probably already lived through anyway, at least one point in your life, and you're just doing that for your own benefit, not others. And that's the thing that gets me with reform voters here, to address that elephant in the room. Reform is not a nice party at all. They don't advocate for human rights the way that any other party does. I'd argue the Conservatives probably have more human rights than Reform, though, which is fucking weird to say because they usually don't. But it's just absolute insanity that we live in a situation where people are willing to not only put a young person's life at risk from inequality via reform, but also to enable grooming and stuff, like all this horrible shit that people supposedly wanted to prevent, and they're not actually preventing it because they're the problem. They're the ones actually doing it. And I think if you actually wanted to protect them, you'd actually do the proper research on this. You'd find out what's causing all these problems? Why are women and children being groomed or something? Why are women being abused, like this sort of thing? And the research doesn't really point to immigrants as people have believed. It points to middle-aged white men as the primary issue, and it points to bad living standards for immigrants who do commit these crimes. So the problem isn't necessarily rooted in immigration, it's rooted in wealth, or the lack thereof. Because there are currently only a wealthy few in the world, and they are not taxed, and that means people are going to be paid less. So the people who are paid less also need to put caps on low income, technically speaking. But the people who are actually paid less are going to struggle, and that's going to lead to these problems. You know, in America, there was like this documentary, I think, called They're Killing Us. And it was basically exposing the racism that occurs in, well, America. And it explained how the people in these situations are not there because they chose to, but because they have to. And it's often because they're the people of colour who've been placed in a poor neighbourhood or born there, and they have to get by. And that's basically all it's about. I'm pretty sure there are other topics, but that's like the gist of it. Yeah, like they're put in a bad situation and they do not actually have a chance to live their life properly. So they end up struggling to get by because of that. And yeah, like no shit, they commit crime because of it. Because they have to buy drugs, sell drugs. They buy drugs to cope, but sell drugs to make a profit. And there's gun violence and gangs, so let's forget that. Because they're in competition with each other due to, again, these poor living standards. And you know, if you dig deep into it, you find these issues, like, quite easily. So, again, my main message here is, if you're strongly against immigration and people of colour, don't fucking blame them. Look deeper and then decide. Because you're not going to find any truth by, again, making up a story. You know, making up a story is literally what it is, it's fiction. So you're not going to literally be able to solve these problems that you want to solve. But even then, like, young people have a better idea of how to address these problems, and so they're going to do it different to how you would, but in a way that isn't harmful to you. So there is this effect where essentially there's no harm done, which I would argue is far more important than the way that reform wants it done, where there is actual harm. And let's be honest, they probably want a dystopia where they'll display people's heads on the pike if they don't agree with them. So I'll probably hang up from trees, let's be honest. We've got plenty of trees in the UK, the countryside, but still, that's literally what we're heading towards. It's literally almost a Black Mirror episode. If anyone's ever seen that, I strongly recommend it. At the moment, I'm only on season 3, episode 1, and there's still, I can't count, 4 more seasons to go, and a ton of episodes. That's literally what's happening, and I just feel like talking about this because it's important. And I don't really want the younger generations, even like those younger than me, being compromised because of, again, a stupid ass fucking party system. Like, it's just absurd. You know, I don't want these terrible living standards, and I'm sure a lot of people who are anti-immigration don't want that as well. But you're not going to find that in a party that is claiming to care, but doesn't back up their own claims with evidence. that doesn't actually do the research, and let's be honest, they just dish out slop. And it's like TikTok slop, basically. So there's not actually any quality at all. So I just wanted to say this really, and it's a separate video of course, but it's really important. So do reconsider, obviously. I'm open for debating these topics because I'm not very knowledgeable on them, but I'll try. I do care about it. It's really important now more than ever. Because, sorry, I just came up unexpectedly. Now more than ever, the UK is in a dangerous place. Like, not only is Keir Starmer fucked over the place, Reform will fuck it even more. And they'll just make us all, I don't know, like bitches, for lack of a better term. That's it, really. And they don't want workers' rights, by the way. I've also heard this before. And they don't want disability rights, so that shows you their priorities. You know, it's not a nice party. You know, they're trying to make probably Nazi Germany too, I know. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. So, obviously, vote Green. It's the only party who gives a shit.